Hey, Bulls and Bears, back with another dose of economic reality. The car repo man is warning that the car repo crisis is just getting started and that things are going to get a lot worse. We're going to tell you why. Please make sure that you like, subscribe these videos. Please keep this channel alive. But let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, it's been maybe a week or two since we last reported on car repossessions. The numbers are increasing, and not just for subprime borrowers, but even for people with good credit. And there's some reasons behind it that I don't think many people are aware of, and we're going to talk about what an actual repo man said here in just a few minutes. And here's an article here out of Fox Phoenix. Here's why car repossessions are up, according to an Arizona towing company. Now, first, let's just put the obvious out there. We had a crazy bubble happen with car and truck prices because of shortages, because of panic and FOMO. People worried that vehicle prices were just going to go up, that we were headed into car and truck hyperinflation. So people went out and paid whatever they could for. They got approved for the biggest loan possible using 6, sometimes even 7, 8-year financing terms, which is completely crazy. Especially during the years 2020 and 2021, when the shipping ports were very restricted, when there were backups, the chip shortages, all that led to a shortage of vehicles and caused a mania in the purchasing of vehicles and these prices. But something that this car repo man put out there that is very not talked about very much at all, and that's relationships are crumbling. He says a large percentage of the cars that he's repossessing is because of splitting, relationships, people splitting up, divorces, separations, and all that. And that should be something that's looked at as an impact on a lot of other areas, right? When you have a 2-income household, things are a little bit easier than when you go down to a 1-income household, right? So a married couple combines their income to help pay the rent or mortgage, and now they break up. Now it's one person trying to pay these household expenses. And it also means people having to relocate and look for their own place to live, and therefore may have to find another job. It's a big mess. Anyone that's been through a split up, divorce, separation, you know it can be a big mess. Emotionally, financially, and all of the above. But this is what the repo man here from Arizona is telling us. Now, it's really madness out there. About 12% of all car loan borrowers, people that borrowed money to buy a vehicle, about 12% of those people have a payment that's $1,000 a month or more. That's a home payment. That used to be a home payment. Now it's more like $2,000 a month, even for rent. But that is a really high car payment. But take a look at this. Even people with good credit, what we call prime borrowers, are getting behind on their loan payments. Car repossessions are surging. In fact, even people with prime credit scores, what's considered low-risk borrowers, the delinquency rate has doubled just in the past year. And remember back in 2020 with all the stimulus, and also do you remember the supplemental unemployment benefits, the cancellation of rent, and the freezing of foreclosures and evictions? That had people feeling rich at the time, and a lot of them went out and bought, and they paid whatever price they could for a vehicle. And to make matters worse, those programs, those rescue programs basically, were counted as income for the loan. So people qualified for loans in many cases much larger than they would have qualified for originally, right? So it wasn't just the vehicle shortage, the chip shortage, it was also the lending based on this temporarily high income or temporary surge in income. It shouldn't be even called income because of a lot of it was just rescue programs, forgiveness programs. People saved up money during that time because they couldn't go out and spend it because there was a lot of things that were shut down. They had extra money because they didn't have to pay rent. Let's face it, that was part of it. Right? So this is a multi-pronged problem, and that's what's creating bubbles. That's what has created this bubble, and that's what's created bubbles in the past. When we look at the housing market bubble, we see that it's not just one thing. It's not just low interest rates. It's a multitude of things. And now we're going to start seeing the fallout in the housing market, also in the car loan side of things, where defaults are going to continue to surge unless new rescue programs can be implemented. I hope that doesn't happen. Whatever health crisis jumps out of the shadows, maybe they'll implement a freeze in cars being repossessed. Who knows? I wouldn't take anything off the table here. On one hand, I hope it doesn't happen because it keeps bubbles inflated that shouldn't be inflated. But on the other hand, you hate to see people lose their vehicles. And when people start losing their vehicles, they lose their transportation to work. And that causes bigger problems in the jobs market. And things snowball from there, right? Nobody wants to see anybody get hurt. I guess maybe if you're a mean person, you want to see people get hurt. But a lot of us out there just want to see more normal prices. They want to see these bubbles pop because ultimately, at the end of the day, someone might be hurt initially when they lose their vehicle, but down the road, if prices of things become cheaper, even that person that went through some temporary hardships will eventually be in a better spot when affordability returns back to the markets. Now, let's take a look at where we're likely headed for car prices. With less people qualifying for car loans, because these rescue programs are no longer there like they used to be, with higher interest rates making the payments higher, and more cars being repossessed is going to equal more inventory. That combination of those things, we should start to see car prices come down. I'm predicting by the end of the year. But again, I have to put this out there because people will say, JJ, you said this. Unless they bring in some massive rescue program, some freeze on car repossessions or something like that. Right, so with all these factors stacked on top of one another, I expect continued economic deterioration. Now back to the first story that we talked about, the car repo guy from Arizona. He says things are getting worse. As things go along, things are getting worse. If they were getting better, I would love to report this to you. They're not getting better though. He said things are getting worse. If the repossessions of cars were getting better, meaning they were decreasing from month to month, I would get on here to all of you and say, hey, things are getting better. Things are going to be just fine down the road. But actually, no, things are getting worse. Things are not going to be fine down the road. I see a lot of hardship out there for a lot of people with this economy. And people say, hey, JJ, tell us solutions. We know things are bad. What can we do? Stay out of debt. Don't go overpay for something. Sometimes you have to swallow your pride and live with somebody else. Live a low-cost life. Be a minimalist, right? People are even going towards van life. There's a lot of stories out there of people just living in a van because the cost of just basic housing is just outrageous. But the problem is now vans cost a lot more and gas costs a lot more for the vans, right? So some people say it's lose-lose, no-win situation. Keep on doing what you got to do. Ultimately, there's going to be this huge bankruptcy storm if you're falling behind and you can't keep up with the cost of living, your debt is mounting, and you see no way out. You're not the only one. You're not the Lone Ranger. It's going to be bankruptcy for millions of people before this is done. And as things continue to get worse, we're going to be on here to report it for you. If there's good news, I'll bring it to you here. If you have good news, please let me know down in the comments what is the good news. What's going to be the bright side of things here, a silver lining, so to speak. Please let me know. Otherwise, keep stacking. Stay well. Be safe out there, folks. Bye for now. Peace.